Welcome to Jimbo's Garage.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Jimbo's Garage. Well, today we're going to be doing what might be a minor restoration on this vise, which I believe is a Wilton. I don't know for sure. I got this the same time I got the Colombian 504.5 over there, and it's been sitting in my shop. I've restored the Colombian about 3 years ago. This one I haven't done anything with. It's just been in the corner, and I think it's time to get this thing cleaned up and refreshed up a little bit because I have a use for it. I think I'm going to put it on the end of my welding table over there. The welding table's got half 13 holes in it, every 4 inches on center, every 2 inches on center I should say, and I'm going to make a plate, and I'm going to attach this vise to the plate, and I'll be able to bolt it onto the table and use it whenever I need to, and take it off when I don't want to use it. So basically, I believe this is a Wilton. There are some numbers in the front of the vise right here. The numbers are 111147, and underneath that is a series of other numbers, possibly letters. I can't really tell. I'll know more when I start to actually clean it up a little bit, and I'll be able to read them a little bit better, but it looks like it could be an N-1. For those guys out there that know a little bit about vices, maybe you know what that is. Some of these Wilton vices were made here in the United States, some of them overseas. There might have been a time error when all that happened. I don't really know for sure. Maybe those numbers will help identify that. So if you know anything about that, maybe leave a comment in the comment section. So overall, this vise is really in really good shape. It just has been neglected. It's been sitting out, and not a lot of use has happened onto this. The serrations here and the jaws are almost like brand new. The anvil has very little damage to the top of it. It's almost perfectly flat. And the top of the vise itself right here, no hammer marks, no nothing. So everything all in all is in really good shape. And what I do like about this is you can see how wide and how thick the jaw area is right here. And I think that's just going to be a nice little machine or a shop vise. One thing I did find that was wrong with it was the swivel base screw handle right here. This thing is slightly bent. That is really the only problem. And of course, that's an easy fix. We'll fix that when we get into it a little bit. Outside of that, it's in really good shape. Just needs to be cleaned up. I possibly might see if I can find a badge for this right here, and maybe paint it back to the original, which looks to be Wilton blue. I see a little indication on the swivel base right here that it has a little bit of blue paint. I know that originally is what some of those vices have. One thing that we are going to do to this modification is currently the handle on this vise is 1/2 inch diameter, about 8 inches long, and I would think that it would be much better with a 5/8 diameter, 12 inches long. We're going to be able to modify that. I believe what we're going to need to do is take the lead screw right here, and I'll drill that out to a 5/8 or a fractional size larger. I got a 5/8 cold roll bar. We'll cut that to 12 inches long. We'll set it up in the mill some ends for it, and drill and tap the ends on, and probably drill this lead screw out in the mill and get that taken care of. So those are the modifications I want to do to it. So let's get started on this minor vise restoration. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is start disassembling this vise, everything I can, take it completely apart, and you can see that everything came apart, and I'm really surprised. For this thing as old as it is and sitting around, these screws really weren't that tight. I didn't have that big of a problem taking any parts of this apart. It all came apart pretty smoothly. One thing you see right there is that pipe holder that sits beneath the jaws. That one is cracked. I'll address that with you guys a little bit later on. I did have a little bit of a problem taking one screw off from this jaw right here. I don't know, something must have happened to it. It got bent over, but ultimately I got the thing cleaned off enough where I could get that screw out. Took a little bit, but it came out. All right, so this little back part of the vise right here where the lead screws into, I couldn't quite tell at first how it came out, but after carefully looking at it, you can see there's a couple of pins on the end, and just driving these pins through, they touched each other, and I couldn't figure out how that's going to come apart. Ultimately, I had to get a punch and bend them down, and then I could drive the pins through, and they came out that way. All right, so with everything all apart, it's time to start cleaning off these main parts of the vise. And conveniently enough, you can see that I bolted it down with a 1/2-13 bolt to my welding table. It's allowed a nice solid connection there, so I could start cleaning things up. You know, all I really did right here was just use a series of wire brushes, wire wheels, cup wheels, flap wheels like this. And I also had a smaller round wire wheel that fit inside my drill. With all those, that's all I really needed to kind of clean things off. All of these are from mercerindustries.com. And you know, the more I did this, I realized that I know I originally talked about painting this back the original Wilton blue, but I'm going to leave it like this. It looks good. It's cleaning up really nice, and I kind of like this look right here. You know, there really wasn't much on here in terms of wear. All it really was a heavy coat of dust, dirt, and grime. And so this stuff came off pretty good. If it had an original color blue, which I think it did, that completely faded out. You can see by flipping this thing over, the bottom ring part here, even this smooth. Look how smooth that is. I mean, there's no pitting, there's no nothing in that whatsoever. And you know, I'm really happy with the way this is cleaning up. Yeah, you got to find all kinds of different ways to get everything blocked up and secured down. You can see I got some blocks underneath there and got everything nice and flat and level and able to get me in every position to clean every part of it that I could. All right, with one of the main bodies done, I decided that I better get the rest of the smaller parts in a tub of Evaporest right here. This stuff here works really good. Even though they weren't rusted much, they had a lot of grime on it. It's ideal. You can see I cut the lead screw. I cut the handle off the lead screw. I was able to get that in. I'm gonna let those soak for a little bit while I go ahead and clean off the rest of the parts right here. Now, this is a 3-inch cup wheel. You know, like I said, some different wire wheels work better in different situations. This cup wheel worked really good for what I was doing right here. And then, you know, I was able to switch over to that flatter wheel, and then this one right here for cleaning out all the tight areas again. You know, you can see the bottom part right there that it actually swivels on. Man, that was in really good shape. So, you know, like I said, this vise really had very little use in its lifetime. Yeah, I can tell the more I started cleaning things up, I could just tell that it was in just really good shape. And the person that had it before me, don't think they used it much at all. All right, time to get everything out of the Evaporest. It's been 24 hours and everything is spotless. Just need to get over and wash it off with some soap and water, get everything nice and clean. Okay, well, I got everything all completely cleaned up and got all the parts out of the Evaporest. You can see it did a really good job, the Evaporest, of taking all the remaining rust off a lot of these small parts right here. And now we're ready to start putting things together. Before we, you know, we do have a couple of corrections we got to make. I got to drill out this lead screw right here and straighten up the swivel bolt right here. And there was another thing that I noticed that I don't know if you guys caught it on the video, but this pipe grabber or whatever it may be that goes on the inside of the vise, there's one on either side, a little bit below the jaws right here. This one right here was broken, and it is cast iron, and I'm not going to try to fix that. I'm going to leave that alone. I don't use it. It was held in there pretty tight with the screw, so that's one thing I'm not going to try to fix. If I did, I have to grind the backside flat, and I just don't know that it's going to be really repairable at this point, so I'm just going to go ahead and leave that. All right, well, what I want to do before we get started on the handle and the lead screw is I want to soak everything down with a penetrating lubricant. Now, what I'm going to be using is this Gibbs brand. I had one of my viewers a couple years ago suggest this. I don't know, when I'm done with my welding table and I clean it up, I like to spray it down with WD-40, and this viewer suggested that I try this Gibbs, that they use it all the time in their shop. So I ordered a can of it a couple years ago, and I've been using it ever since. As a matter of fact, I use it so much now in the shop for all the metal parts that I went ahead and bought like 6 cans. So it's a pretty common product here in the shop, and I'll put a link in the description for this product right here, Gibbs brand. It's a penetrating lubricant, corrosion inhibitor, water repellent, and metal protector. And I find that it really does a good job. So we're gonna go ahead and just coat everything down here, then we're gonna get started on the repair work. All right, so with everything all coated down, it's time to do the minor repair here. You see, this wasn't much. This swivel bolt right here, just a couple swings with a hammer, got it straightened out. But this is the big thing for me. This is the lead screw. I was all proud of my fixturing right there. I'm not a machinist, but I'm just a hobbyist, and you know, everything that I learn, I get from videos, watching other people machine. But I got a lot of hand-me-down stuff that I inherited from my father-in-law from his old machining days. This is a drill bit that I needed. It was 11/16. I didn't have one. He happened to have one that he had kind of trimmed and used for a particular job. It wasn't the sharpest drill, but I was able to get through it. It did the job. Quite a fixturing thing for me there. I was proud of that. All right, just a countersink right here, and just a little touch on both sides, and then over to Burr King, and just kind of smooth things off. All right, well, that said, it's time to do a little bit of assembly, and you can see I've got some red grease here. I don't know if this is required or you're supposed to use it, but I thought it's a friction point right there. I thought it'd be a good idea to put a little grease on there. And you can just see how cleaned up everything came out of the evaporust, and after I coated it with that Gibbs penetrating lubricant. Everything is nice and smooth, nice and clean, and it's going together pretty good. All right, that big old part where the lead screw goes into, I just drove those pins. I got some matching pins, same exact size and length, and I was able to just pound those right in place, and it was just like it was originally. And then screwing in those pipe clamp things under the jaws right there. Got it done. Left that one alone. I didn't do anything with it. That was cracked. You know, those things going together smoother than it, just as smooth as it did when it came apart. All right, so the lead screw, a heavy coat of red grease on there, and be sure that I just rubbed in everything really good, and started screwing it in right there. And you know, everything was really smooth. I mean, this thing is really operating smoothly now. Small little collector plate there on the bottom. And it's time to put the jaws in. Now, this is one thing that I would have done, you know, differently, what I should have done. I should have put these jaws in prior to installing the vise, the two pieces together, because I had a little bit of a time getting those jaws in, putting those screws in over the top of each other there. A little bit of a challenge. But that's the only thing I would have done differently. I should have put the jaws on before. But everything's working really smooth. You can just see operating, you know, by my hand right there, nice and smooth. All right, time for the handle. This is the most challenging part for me in this whole restoration is making this. Like I said, I don't get a lot of machining work here, but I'm just hoping this is going to work out the way I was hoping. A piece of 5/8 cold rolled. Cut it 12 inches long. I got it over here to the lathe, and I'm gonna cut some threads on either end right here. I'm gonna use a 3/8 16, and you can just see I got about a 1/2 inch right there. Cut a little relief in there, and this is the first time that I actually cut some threads on my lathe. Even though it was just a 1/2 inch, boy, you really got to be on your toes. But I was able to get it done, and now that nut fit right on there perfectly. All right, I just repeated the same thing on the other side. You know, I've had this lathe for just about a year now, and I don't know, I don't have a lot of time with it, and I've done some things with it. You know, I make my table dogs with them, with it, but you know, limited use in terms of different things like threading. Like this was kind of fun, something different that I've never done before. All right, just like that part is done. I'm going to set that aside right now. You can see that that fits right in there, just the way I was hoping. All right, so now is the real challenge for me, is trying to make the balls for the end of the handle right here. I got a piece of 1-inch round bar stock, and you know, like I said, this is another tool bit that was handed down to me. A part of it was stuff that I inherited from my father-in-law. He had hand cut this radius tool many years ago. It's not the radius that I need, but it's not too far off, so I thought I'd go ahead and use this, and I'd be able to take this tool and maybe move it 2 or 3 different positions to get it somewhere as close, and that's what I'm doing right here. So first I started off on the end, kind of rounded it. Now I'm going in head on with it, and I'm just kind of shaping the ball a little bit right there, and then I need to turn it in the opposite direction to get in behind it, but I can't really do that. I'm going to have to cut some relief in there. I'll do that here in a minute. So while I got to this point, it is time to drill and tap this, and you can see that this is going to be a 3/8 tap. So this is a 5/16 drill bit, and I'm going in about a 1/2 inch. I've marked the drill bit right there. I don't want to go too far. Obviously, I don't want to go out the other end, but a 1/2 inch is all I really needed. And then I'm starting with a taper tap here, and then I'm going to finish it off with bottom tap. Now I'm only going a 1/2 inch in. And I didn't want to power tap it in the lathe. I know a lot of you guys are saying, hey, you could have just power tapped it in there. Yeah, I probably can, but you know, because it's just a 1/2 inch, I didn't want to risk doing that or trying something there. I just figured it'd be best if I just did it by hand. And there's the bottom tap, and that's all cleaned out. And now I'm going to cut the relief on the back side so I can get that radius tool on the back side right there. I couldn't get it in there. The tool, the way it is shaped, it didn't allow me to get in there. I had to cut some of the fat off the back of this 1-inch bar stock to do that. All right, with that done, then I can just transfer that, move that over about 20 degrees is what I did, and then I was able to go ahead and finish shaping up the ball there. All right, so I got a parting tool right here, and I'm just going to cut it off. Now, I got to say, I'm a little nervous. I've parted some things off in the past with my other lathe, the 42 Atlas, and I had some issues with it. And I was a little nervous that some bad things would happen. So I went ahead and stopped with about an 1/8 inch left. And I went ahead and cleaned this up before I cut it off. Got some emery paper there and a non-woven pad to give it a little polish. And then I just went in there with a hacksaw and cut the remaining 1/8 inch off. Left a little nub, went over the Burr King and cleaned that up. And you couldn't tell it, that was nice and smooth when I was done. And there it is, screws on, and it looks just like it should. All right, time for the next one. Now you can never do the same thing twice, at least I can't, without it being a little bit different than the first time. And you know, I was kind of excited the way the first one turned out, that I got a little carried away and did not do the same procedure as I did last time. You can see I started out okay, rounded the edge right here, and come straight in on it right here. And then from this point, I went ahead and started cutting the relief in the backside. I forgot about drilling the tap in the end. I got to where I was almost too late, and I remembered, I got to get that drilled and tapped. And that right here it is. Still has plenty of meat back there, so I was okay. I ended up getting through it. So it's the same procedure as before, about a 1/2 inch in, 5/16 drill bit. Got a center there in my tailstock, and just hand tapped it in there. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and finish it off. Well, now I got a little brave. You can see I got a rod in my tailstock, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut this thing all the way through and see how that works. And you can see that it just snapped off perfectly right there. The piece stayed in the end. And it still left a little nub. I got it all cleaned up. And there it is. That's a big relief for me. That turned out just the way I was hoping. All right, well, this vise restoration is complete, and I gotta say I'm pretty pleased with the way it turned out. I really like this old patina finish. It kind of matches the Colombian vise that I have over there. Plus, I think it looks good for my shop and out here on the welding table. You know, after this thing was complete, I mentioned that there was very little use of this vise, and that appears to be absolutely true. There's just a couple little dings in the very top right here. The jaws are in excellent shape. They're almost brand new. And this addition to the handle right here, 5/8 by 12, this is the old handle right here. It's 1/2 by 8. You can see there's quite a bit of difference right there. And by doing this, it's going to allow a lot more leverage with the vise. I think it's just a really good addition. Plus, it gave me a chance to work with the mill a little bit and the lathe, something I don't do very often, and it's always good to do that. All right, so what I'm going to be doing with this vise now is I'm going to be mounting it to this plate right here. Now, this is a 10-inch square by 3/8 thick plate, and then I'll be able to mount the plate to the welding table. The welding table has 1/2 13 threads, 2 inches on center here. I've created this template right here and positioned the holes right here that mount to the welding table, and then I've actually got the holes that offset so it doesn't interfere with the 4 holes that I'm going to use to mount it to the welding table. I'll drill those separately. And I'm going to be using these 5/8 countersink bolts, and they're going to go up through the bottom of the plate, and that's going to be flush to the bottom, and it will be flush to here, and I'll use 5/8 nuts to hold them in place there. So when I don't use this vise, I can unbolt it and set it down or keep it in place up here. One thing that I want to mention in mounting a vise to a workbench or a tabletop is ideally you would want to have the vise ahead of the face of the workbench or tabletop or whatever it is. So if you put something vertically in here, it clears the face of the workbench or table. I can't do that with this vise. My other 2 vices are set up that way. I've got them way beyond so I can do that. This one, the way it's designed, I'm not going to be able to do that. You can see that I can't pull it forward, so it is not going to work that way. However, it is going to work in my favor having something long horizontally that it's going to be able to rest on the end of my welding table down there, and I'll be able to prop it up if I need to get it nice and level and crank it down, and I can actually do that on both angles right here. So that's going to work out pretty good. All right, so I've got a lot of drilling to do. So let's go ahead and get that done and get this project finished up. All right, so there it is. You can see that the only dings were in the very top right there. Other than that, everything worked out really good. All right, with 8 holes to drill, and Champion Cutting Tools is a new channel sponsor here, and I thought I'd break out my little brute mag drill right here to take care of these 8 holes. I got four holes one size and 4 holes a little bit bigger. I think 9/16 for one size, 5/8 for the other. And you can see that drilling it through here is effortlessly, and it leaves really a clean machine finish. You know, it's just something you can't achieve on a drill press with a drill. These annular cutters just provide such a clean finish and an accurate drilling capability here. I've got 3 different mag drills here in the shop, and they all have their purpose, and this one here worked out really good for what I'm doing right now. Accompanied with a little bit of brute lube, it makes it no problem drilling these holes. You know, it took me probably, I'm just guessing, maybe 10 minutes to drill all 8 of these holes. And you can see that they're all drilled. They all look a little different pattern, but trust me, they're all going to fit right where they need to. All right, so I threw a block of wood up here on the mill, and I wanted to just take this countersink and just go around and clean up these holes. And that's what I did, and that worked out pretty good. And now I'm trying to countersink the really deep countersink for the vise mounting through the bottom. You can see I've fixtured it up on my mill, but I kept the block of wood in there. This is an amateur move for a machinist, I know, Probably not the best thing. There was a lot of, well, there was a little bit of flex in it. I didn't really notice it. It actually cut the countersink in there pretty good. But I did eventually, after getting a couple holes in, I did remove the wood and get some 1-2-3 blocks in there, and it seemed to be a lot more stronger and sturdier. You know, this is an 1.25 countersink. This is something I didn't have, but I needed it. So fortunately for me, right down the street, I've got a KBC Tools, and there's a big machining supply house that they've got several locations around the United States and Canada. I'm fortunate enough to have one right down the street from me, and every time I need something that I don't have, that's quick and easy for me to run down there. They always have it. You can see those bolts fit in there pretty good. All right, so you see I switched over to the 1-2-3 blocks now, and you know, a lot better, a lot smoother, a lot more rigid. Yeah, you live and learn. Again, I don't know. You know, I'm not the machinist, but hey, if you don't do these things, you're not going to learn. All right, with all of that done, all the holes are drilled. I just need now to take it over to my welding table and take a flap disc and go all around the outside edges. They're sharp from the shear, and I just want to kind of round the edges and take off all the sharp edges, and then run it over top of all the holes on both sides. And that's going to just take off all the burrs and get everything nice and smooth, so I'm not going to be able to cut myself on these sharp edges or sharp points. All right, installation time. That plate fits perfect right there, and I'm just going to feed up these countersink bolts to the bottom side there, and that worked out just the way I was hoping. You can see right here, right up through the bottom. They'll be flush, and that plate will be flush to the top of my welding table. Just crank them down with a big Allen wrench, tighten things up, and then just bolt it to the welding table. I have 13 bolts. You can see those two are closer together. The other two are a little bit more farther apart. That just happened to be the way the pattern lined up on the corner of my welding table. All right, there it is. This was a fun project. I had a great time doing this, and I'm really pleased the way it turned out. This is going to be a good asset to the shop. Guys, check out my website, jimbosgarage.com, for torch lead holders, table dogs, t-shirts, hats, stickers, miscellaneous things. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next week.
See you next time on Jimbo's Garage.